Hello and welcome. I'm Michelle Anderson, founder of Clarinet Mentors. I've been a teacher and professional player for over 30 years, and my goal with these YouTube videos is to help you play the clarinet more easily and to pick up some pointers that you might not run across on your own. Today, I just want to show you a simple maintenance trick for your clarinet that might help you, especially with some of your right-hand high notes. This is a mechanism that often gets out of adjustment on clarinets, and many people might not be aware that their instrument's out of adjustment. So I'll show it to you, then you'll know how to check your own clarinet, and also in future, if you run into problems, you might remember this little pointer along the way. So what I'm going to talk about is the mechanism of our bridge key. The bridge key looks a little different on each manufacturer of clarinet, but basically it's the key that joins our lower joint to our top joint. Most of it's tucked up under these four side keys here. And I'm going to adjust some light so it's right onto this key so you can see what I'm pointing at. So I've got this line here that I'd like to make a straight line with that. That key affects a few things when we're playing the clarinet, but primarily it affects these two pads that are covered. So you can see on my right hand, right here I have a silver pad that doesn't have a finger hole. And up here I have one. And you can see when I push down the ring on my bottom joint here, it also pushes this pad down here. So if it's perfectly adjusted, all these mechanisms will fit together just right so that when I'm holding down any of the rings on my right hand, this pad is perfectly sealing, and so is this pad here. And sometimes that's not the case. In fact, very often these keys do get a little bit out of adjustment. What you can do visually to check it is this. Hold your clarinet out in front of you like I'm doing. With your right hand, push down one of these rings and hold it. Doesn't really matter which one. You could press all of them. With your other hand, you're just going to poke these pads and see if there's some give there. I'll just turn my bridge key deliberately to make it not straight. In fact, if you look here up close, you'll see that these aren't lining up right now, but it'll imitate what might happen if your bridge key is a bit out of adjustment. I would hold down the rings on my right hand, and I'll press this right hand ring. Feels pretty snug to me, so probably that pad is sealing properly. Now I'll press my top one. Oops, don't know if you can see that up close, but there's a lot of give there. That pad's not closing properly. So that would be an indicator to me that it's not lined up. Now, if this upper pad isn't closing, usually we're not going to notice that unless we're playing special fingerings, like what we call our 1-on-1 high B flat. That's where I have thumb, register key, high B natural, and instead of going to a side B flat, I add this finger. In that case, this pad wouldn't be closing, and it wouldn't work. I'd get some funny sound. Or a squeak. So, in this case, I might check to see if my bridge key's lined up and notice that I accidentally, on purpose, had it off center. I straighten it out, and if that 1-on-1 B flat works well, then the top key probably is sealing properly. Not quite, so I fine tune it some more. Now it's coming out very easily, so that means my top key's in alignment. But even if I turn it back to where I had it so that it wasn't sealing, even if that one wasn't working, most of the time we don't use that key by itself. We have our second finger down and this ring controls that. So you're not so much likely to notice if that key's out. The one that will cause us more active trouble is if the top key on our right hand is not sealing. And by chance, I've had about 3 students in the last few weeks that have problems with that hole not sealing. What you'll tend to notice is that, especially in the higher register, because the high register is just a bit more finicky, when you're slurring from a G to an F, where we're adding this finger, you sometimes squeak, or sometimes your tone is not good on that note. And to me, that's a dead giveaway. I had a student who has really good ears come in and say, most of my notes work great, but my high F never does. And to me, that's just the clue. Because this pad sits right above that finger, it will affect that note more than any others. So what I did is what I just showed you. I held his ring key down, I looked, and sure enough, there was some give there. So if we just look at the mechanics of this for a moment, when I push that ring down, you can see how it's lifting up the bridge key on the side here, right here. So I push the ring down and that key goes up. All right, you can probably see it up close there. When the upper joint is on here, there's a piece that goes on top of that key, and ideally it's supposed to come up and hit it. If this top piece comes down too far, it will limit it from rising all the way, and this key will come to a stop before that pad has completely sealed, and that's where we'll cause some trouble. So when that happens, you'll slur from G to F, and it'll be as if that key's not closing all the way. You'll sometimes hear that airy resistance that I was just getting a little bit. So oftentimes we can just slightly twist our bridge key. If it's not in adjustment when it's perfectly straight, we can just turn it a tiny bit one way or another, and both of those keys will properly seal. But if the top key's been bent down so that key doesn't close, sometimes you can just very, very gently, tiniest of motion, bend it up a little bit so that that now seals. Now, of course, if we go too far, then these keys won't connect and the upper ring won't seal. But most of the time, it's the lower one that's going to give us more trouble than the upper one. And of course, as always, your best friend on clarinet is a really skilled repair person who can keep your clarinet in really good working order. And one of their jobs would be to make sure the bridge key's functioning well. But this is a really subtle thing. If it's leaking just a little bit, which it often is, you're just going to find that sometimes your right hand notes, any of the right hand notes, will squeak. Other causes of squeaks can be a reed that's a bit too soft, a bit of biting on the reed, but if you sort of feel like you're pretty sure none of those are going on, then that's something to check. So this bridge key is really important for us on the clarinet, and it's important that it's in good alignment. Sometimes you can tweak it yourself. Even better, if you do have access to a great repair person, that's something you should make sure is working well for your clarinet. That's just a quick pointer for you today, because as I said, I've had a few students recently who've had trouble with that. I wanted to share it with all of you in the Clarinet Mentors community. I also want to invite you, if you're not a full-fledged member of the Clarinet Mentors community, to please join. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is go to www.learnclarinetnow.com, and you'll see a space to put in your name and email address. If it's not for you, you can unsign up very easily at any time. But as a member of my community, I will send you a newsletter about every 2 or 3 weeks that will always have an educational video, like the one you've seen today, plus my recommendations of really cool clarinet gadgets, clarinet music, clarinet recordings, clarinet special events, and I'll invite you to special events that I have that are only open to people in the Clarinet Mentors community. So please join. I also look forward to hearing from you. If you have any comments about this, there's a comments box right below this video. I invite you to put your question in there. I check them about once a week, and I always put replies in there. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.